Hello and welcome. Our today's guest is Alex Hillkurtz from Paris. These two are Domestika ads that you may have seen popping up in your YouTube videos. I really enjoyed having a little chat with him, and I really hope that you will too.
Hi, I'm Alex Hillkurtz. I'm a professional watercolor painter and storyboard artist. Since the 90s, I've been working on feature films such as Vanilla Sky, Argo, and Live by Night. I've also been lucky enough to have pieces in exhibits in Europe and the United States. All the experience I've had working in cinema translates directly into my paintings. Because of my love of movies, I approach painting architecture and cityscapes as if they're scenes in a film. To me, buildings are characters whose stories I infuse into my paintings. It's one thing to depict a scene accurately. It's another thing entirely to portray the character and mood of a place. Watercolor painting is my way to fully experience the depth of a place. One of the things I love about painting is starting a conversation with the viewer about the timeless stories and the character of a city. Because of its simplicity and its magic, watercolor paintings will turn your daily walks around your favorite neighborhoods.
I'm a really big admirer of his work, and I couldn't thank him enough to spend some time and share his insights with all of us. So a really heartfelt thanks to Alex. And without further ado, here's Alex Hillkurtz and the 4th episode of the Artventure Vodcast. I hope you enjoy, and please watch till the end.
Yeah, I'm in Paris right now. Yeah, I'm in my studio here in Paris.
Awesome. So welcome to the Artventure Vodcast, sir. It's really a pleasure to have you here. So,
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, and also, first of all, congratulations on earning the signature membership at National Watercolor Society.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a big honor for me. I was very happy.
For those of you who do not know, the National Watercolor Society is one of the most elite watercolor societies of the world. And it is a very difficult organization for artists to get through, and kind of an elite organization, an elite group of artists. So it's really a big thing to be a signature member of that elite group. Why you to do what you do? I mean, the style of work, your style.
Yeah, I've been drawing and sketching my whole life. I come from a background in film illustration. I've done storyboards and illustration for cinema for many years. When my wife and I moved here to Paris a number of years ago, I knew I wanted to sketch this city. I really like traveling with a sketchbook. It's just a really nice way to experience.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, and you see a lot more. I take a lot of photos as well, but when you sketch something, you really experience it in a different way, kind of a deeper way.
So, how did you end up in Paris from California?
My wife and I moved here because of her job. She's American, but she works in film as well as an editor for animated films. And there's a studio here in Paris that had a position. So that's why we moved here. And we didn't know how long we would be here. Her jobs are usually 1 year, maybe 2 years. And so we didn't know if we would be here for just a little bit of time or whether it would turn into something longer. But that's what brought us, and then we both love it here, so we're staying as long as we can.
No plan on moving out? Only settled in Paris right now?
We're pretty settled, yeah. I mean, we still have family in California, and we're going to be back there this summer. But we do love it here, and this is becoming our new home.
Awesome. So I also love Paris. I also dream of going there one day, and it's such a surreal experience because I am also an upcoming artist myself, and whenever I search art videos in YouTube, I mean not now, but some time ago on YouTube, whenever I clicked on a video, you would just pop up with your Domestika course, and now I'm sitting here in front of you, so it's very very surreal. Thank you once again for coming, sir.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's pretty fun. I hear from a lot of friends that I haven't seen in years, and they see my videos on YouTube, so it's a funny experience.
right, they promoted your course very much. They did a great job.
Yeah, I think so. I was really happy to work with Domestika and do that course with them. And yeah, they're very aggressive in their advertising. So I'm looking at YouTube videos and I see my course pop up. So it's pretty funny. It's a funny experience.
Right. So, what is your favorite subject to paint? I mean, whenever you will get a chance, you will just hop in and paint that thing. What's that?
Well, I love Paris architecture. I love the scenes that I see around me in this neighborhood. Every time I'm walking around, there's always some interesting corner to see, and I love these cafes. Everything I see is so different from where I grew up in California that it just has I'm just in love with all the details and the life on the street.
Yeah, it's just signature. Whatever you just said in Paris, the cafes, the roads, and the antique architecture of the imperial style architecture. Those are just iconic and just best in Paris.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love sketching and painting in other cities as well. But again, you feel this sense of history that I really, really love. So I try to have that kind of be infused into my paintings.
You give a couple of live workshops in Paris. I have seen in your website. So how do they work out? I mean, students come to you from international, outside Paris, or just your local students from Paris?
No, students come from all over, and it's a pretty incredible experience. It's been difficult the last couple of years because of COVID,
yes.
But before that, I did a lot of workshops here in Paris and other cities in Europe, and I'm going to start again probably this summer. And I'll advertise on my Instagram and Facebook and website. And people come from all over. There's a good community of painters and sketchers here in Paris, but people come from other cities within Europe, and people come from the States or further, which is
my
nice.
God! I mean, for the offline workshops on Paris, people coming from States. Do you have all hotels set up and everything for them, or?
No, the way I've been organizing it is I won't provide travel or accommodation. I just provide the lesson in the daytime. But people make kind of a long weekend out of it, or everyone always wants to come to Paris, so
Yeah.
there's plenty to see. So it's nice when people can kind of fold that into maybe a larger holiday.
I see. Okay. So that's a pretty new thing because I have never heard any artist doing that. I mean, it's really a complete holiday package, and it's pretty incredible to do plein air studies with a professional artist in a holiday. I mean, if I were your student, then it would have been incredible.
Yeah, it's really fun. I really enjoy it. I enjoy teaching in person. I teach on Zoom as well, and that's a different experience.
Yeah.
But there is something really nice about sort of sharing some of my favorite locations around Paris, painting with people, teaching kind of my approach, but then also really trying to have students develop their own style, their own approach to things. So if we spend a day or 2 or 3 days sometimes
it can really be a good experience, a fun time.
That's pretty cool. What do you mean when you say language of cinema inform images? I mean, I saw this line in your website and also in your Domestika ad that you take the language of cinema to inform your images. So, what does that really mean?
Well, like I said, I come from a background of film illustration and doing storyboards. So this is kind of the language that I've been using for many years in my professional work. Um, in cinema, it's such a visual medium, and every image has to tell a story, I think. In film, you've got the luxury of sequential images, so you can have a story unfold over
Right.
time. But each frame really has to be clear and concise. You don't want to sort of waste any information. And so this sort of folds over into my painting and sketching, that I feel like you've got this one frame, this one image, and it's going to tell a story. So I think kind of in these cinematic terms. How would this image look on a movie screen? What do we want? What do I want the viewer's eye to focus on? How do I want you to feel when you look at this image? So for me, these are all ideas that come out of my work in cinema. So that's what I mean when I say that
Okay,
the
so
language of cinema.
basically it's kind of elaborating what one single image is talking about. It's all about. So you are just kind of narrating and elaborating the sense of that image, what it is capturing in that position of time. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. And I like to think that I could see, the scenes that I paint, I could see them on a movie screen, and they would feel like part of a film. And you could imagine walking into that scene and maybe walking into that cafe or meeting a friend or having some sort of a story unfold. Maybe there's a mystery there. You don't know what's going to happen next. These are the kinds of things that I really love. And you can do this in just one image. A still image can really have a lot of information that invites the viewer in. So that's what I love to portray.
That's really cool. Very unique approach it is.
Similar ideas, they draw on their own background to approach things. But this is what I'm drawn to, and the art that I like kind of has a similar, maybe cinematic feel to it. So yeah, I love this.
Awesome. So how was this transition from being a storyboard artist to a complete watercolorist? How did you manage that? I mean, what inspired you to pursue watercolor at the first place?
Well, like I said, I had always sketched, so I knew I wanted to sketch Paris. I had a little kit of watercolor pans, so I could add a little bit of color to my sketches. And it just started to evolve over the years. Storyboard work can be very intense, very time consuming. You're working under a deadline. So you have to draw very quickly, and oftentimes the quality suffers. The drawings have to be very clear, but they're nothing you're going to ever hang on your wall. It's sort of to get information across. And so for my watercolor work, I wanted to really go the other end of the spectrum and take my time to do a painting, really slow down, enjoy the location where I am. Nobody's looking over my shoulder, nobody's telling me what to do. So it's purely for my enjoyment, for my kind of meditation. So that's sort of my painting is sort of a reaction to my storyboard work, but also a kind of a continuation of it at the same time.
That's really, I mean, a win-win situation. When you are pursuing what you love and making it as a full-time career, that's nothing much better than that. Okay, sir.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, absolutely.
Van. All right, sir. So, you were established as a storyboard artist. So, wasn't there any kind of financial instability when you shifted from storyboard to watercolor?
Yes, yeah, it can be a leap of faith, but again, it happened sort of gradually. I would continue to do storyboard work. I would fly back to California to work on films and then return to Paris in between projects. And then there are some of that work that I can do long distance. So I still do some of that, just long distance. Um, and then, and the painting gradually started to take off for me. So it was a gradual transition. Um, and my social media started to grow, and then I started to teach workshops and sell some of my paintings. So it's been a gradual transition, and I'm also very lucky that my wife works as well. So between the two of us,
Yeah,
financially,
the total thing was not on your shoulder. You both were sharing it together.
absolutely, yeah,
Yeah, that's a big advantage.
absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So, why watercolor? I mean, oils can also give a certain kind of effect. I mean, I myself love watercolor, but I'm just asking your perspective on it.
Yeah, I'm sort of fascinated by watercolor because it's every time you paint something, it's going to be slightly different. Watercolor really has a life of its own, and so I've heard other artists describe it as a dance, um, and I love this analogy that you're painting with watercolor. So sometimes you're in the lead, and sometimes the paint is telling you what to do.
Right. It dictates how it is going. It is such flow is there in watercolor.
Absolutely, and you really have to be open to this. If you're if you're if you're someone that really needs to control every element of an image, watercolor might not be the right medium for you.
Right.
And I admit I started out that way. I wanted to have everything be perfect, um, but but it's much more enjoyable, and the results are much more dynamic if you
Let it go.
allow the paint.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I,
Allow the
I
paint to flow.
yeah. I also in my previous works I did some architectural paintings and I just constricted and it was also frustrating for me as well. It was consuming so much of time. It was uh, kind of not very hyper realistic but in realistic genre, but now I'm trying
Yeah.
to lose it up, give more story to it than control and extreme excruciating detail.
Yeah, I had a very similar experience, and I found that when I drew and painted in kind of that more detailed, controlled way, the process was less enjoyable and the results were less enjoyable. So by loosening up, by kind of inviting in this, the paint to do its own thing, um, it's just a much more enjoyable process, and I like the results better. So um, yeah.
Right. So, sir, you are in Paris and you are saying that you are loving it. So, how does Paris as a city influence your work?
Well, I think Paris for me is sort of endlessly inspiring. I really find it beautiful here. The architecture is really beautiful. The light is is really interesting. The way the light kind of illuminates the forms of these buildings, the shadows. I really just love the way this city looks. Um, and so for me, that's just sort of this continual source of inspiration. It's also been good because Paris has a fairly limited color palette, so it makes it you can with just a sort of a handful of colors, you can really portray an interesting scene, and then play with the different dynamics of light and shadow and subtle variations of color. But you don't have to go crazy with the whole, paint box full of colors.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, his studio and the house where he used to live and his gardens in Giverny. It's really kind of an incredible place to be. I was there quite a few years ago, I think, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But it's a pretty inspiring place to stand literally in the footsteps of where he stood when he created so many of these iconic paintings.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
it's incredible.
in which genre would you like to put yourself? I mean, you would like to call yourself, you already have a style, so in which genre you would like to keep yourself?
I think I see myself in this tradition of sort of plein air painters, kind of coming out of the Impressionistic movement. Those painters of that era are really inspiring to me, and they really broke from their older tradition, started painting outside, really trying to depict light and shadow in a way that hadn't quite been done before. And I feel that I'm sort of in line with that tradition. I'm doing my own thing. I'm painting my own scenes. They painted in oils, I'm painting in watercolor, but it's sort of an impressionistic style, I think.
I have something interesting to show you now. Yesterday, I also teach workshops and in classes in Zoom. So I did this last night. It was a reproduction of Turner.
Wow.
It's
That's
also
incredible.
Watercolor.
Very nice.
Thank you, sir. And
that's Turner?
Sorry?
That's a Turner?
Yeah, that's
a
Turner.
Turner?
Yeah, that's a Turner.
Okay, very nice.
Thank you. And
well done.
I also did Monet. I mean, Monet's garden it is, but it's not exactly Monet style. I have my own elements in there.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's very recognizable. I love it. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you have been there, so you will know that it will be the best person to, yeah. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. I've stood right there. I know that. I know where that is. Nice. That's really atmospheric. Well done.
Thank you, sir. And this one is not impressionistic, and I am in a position where I am just transitioning from hyperrealism to realism. Then after that, I may be transiting to something else. I don't know. It's a process. So I did this painting of Austria, and wow. Yes, I just sketched it out. No, nothing kind of tracing, and I do not trace my drawings, nothing like that. I just sketch it up, rough sketch. I make some thumbnail paintings, and after that I do it.
That's incredible. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, those colors are really nice. Very dynamic.
Thank you, sir. And so I really appreciate you coming here, sir.
Well, I'm happy. Yeah, I'm so glad you reached out to me. It's always I love sort of talking art and painting with other artists. And kind of sharing some of my experience. So right. I'm so glad you wrote to me. Thank you.
Okay, sir. So one more thing is that in Paris, I have seen many artists, they just drink coffee and tea or something like that while painting. So does that affect in some kind of a positive way?
To drink coffee while I'm painting?
Yeah. I know, it's a silly question, but I have seen many artists do it. So that's why.
Yeah, I would sketch in coffee shops a lot of the times because I love the cafe culture here in Paris. And so you can sit at a table for 1 or 2 hours with your coffee. There's always some nice view to look at, to sketch. And so for me, coffee kind of becomes just part of the flavor of what you're painting. And so this is why I've started to use the coffee ring as kind of a signature or a
Yeah,
stamp on
exactly.
sketches.
That's why I asked you the question. I saw you in your Domestika ad that you were placing a coffee cup on your paper and that
Yeah.
ring was forming.
Yeah, and I'm certainly not the only artist to do this, but I
I have
do
seen people do that. Yes.
Yeah. For me, it just became, again, it was sort of an organic thing. It just came out of, I was at a cafe, I had a coffee, I had my paints. It just felt like a natural, and it's, because sketches and paintings, they're a piece of a memory. They're kind of a moment in time. And so adding a little coffee was just an extra piece of that,
Right.
an extra taste of that moment.
So I had this thing whenever I took tea or coffee while painting. So it happens that my water pot is also adjacent to the coffee. Then what it happens sometime I take the brush and roll it down on coffee or tea, then put it on my painting. It's not intentional, but it just happens like that. Then also after that, I drink it even that
Yeah.
that colored tea or coffee. So has that happened
Yeah.
anytime with you?
Yeah, that happens all the time. My cup of water for painting, and I've got my cup of coffee or tea, and it's the same thing. And if you need to wet your brush, and oftentimes I'll go into my coffee instead of the water, or you try to drink the water instead of the tea, and it's
Right.
But then you start painting with coffee, and it can be a whole new color to your palette.
Awesome. All right, sir. I will take much of your time. I do not know what kind of audio it would be in the recording, but I enjoyed this conversation very much. It's afternoon time in India. It's just it's 4 p.m. and I am really very much glad that you came here and shared this time.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, it's I'm a few hours behind you, so it's a little bit afternoon here in Paris. But yeah, again, thank you. It's always good to have conversations. I love meeting other artists. Thanks to technology, we can chat like this. We can be in different countries, and it's incredible.
It's really incredible, right?
Yeah.
So I will.
And if you're ever in Paris, let me know.
Sorry, sir?
If you're ever in Paris, let me know.
Of course. I highly look forward to going to Paris, and it's one of my actually favorite cities. Like, Paris is the heart of art and culture. Who wouldn't want to be there? Whoever loves art.
Yeah, absolutely.